you so much, Senator. And we are here today to make sure that we honor the legacy of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who came right here and is a product of James Madison High School and is a proud New Yorker and Brooklynite. And it's extraordinarily important that we understand the stakes of this vacancy. Our reproductive rights are on the line. Our labor rights are on the line. Our right to health care is on the line. Labor and union protections are on the line. Our climate is on the line. With an early appointment, all of our rights, the rights that so many people died for, voting rights, reproductive rights, healthcare rights, all of those rights are at risk with this appointment. And so we need to make sure that we mobilize on an unprecedented scale to ensure that this vacancy is reserved for the next president. And we must use every tool at our disposal, from everyday people, especially in swing states. We need everyday people to call on senators, to call on folks on the bubble, to call Republican senators to make sure that they hold this vacancy open. And we must also commit to using every procedural tool available to us to ensure that we buy ourselves the time necessary. We must commit to allowing and to considering and to utilizing every single procedural tool available to us, again, to buy that time. We need to make sure that we realize and fight this fight with the weight of every person who sacrificed for voting rights, every person who sacrificed their well-being and their lives to make sure that they could marry whomever they love, to make sure that they could live freely and safely in a workplace. This is one of the most important times that we have had for everyday people to stand up, not just from everyday working people, but all the way up to the House and the Senate. We all need to be more courageous, and we all must act in unprecedented ways to make sure that our rights are stabilized. And to Mitch McConnell, we need to tell him that he is playing with fire. We need to make sure that this vacancy is protected, that our election continues, and that the American people have their say. Thank you very much.
That was some pretty powerful stuff. That's AOC just a few minutes ago in New York at James Madison High, where Ruth Bader Ginsburg went to high school. And she's talking about how much is at stake when it comes to the next Supreme Court appointee, and how the Republicans are wrong to rush it, and what the risks are to so many people: the rights of women, the rights of workers, the rights of those struggling to get healthcare or who just barely have it. So much is at stake, and the urgency in her voice, in what she's saying and how she's saying it, is 100% warranted. And she's right to note that Mitch McConnell is playing with fire here, not only in terms of how his brazen hypocrisy and his brazen, attempts to subvert the norms he tried to create in 2016 will further disillusion people with the democratic process, with their government and how it relates to them, but also how it can create consequences down the line, such as court packing and all sorts of solutions, which will be required, mind you, to rectify the blatant abuse of power by McConnell and other Republicans. And I really like this clip because, juxtaposed to Nancy Pelosi earlier today, which we explored on the channel, AOC actually has some gosh darn passion. She's got passion in her voice. She's talking about what it means. She's talking about how it actually affects regular people. And I don't know if Nancy Pelosi either expressed that or even gets that or even cares about those regular people, but AOC does. And she's really expressing that extremely effectively here. I think this is the exact sort of tone we need to hear. And one thing I really liked here was that it wasn't either or for AOC in terms of how do you oppose this effort by Trump and McConnell and the Republicans. It wasn't just, let's look at procedure. And it wasn't just, let's rabble, rabble, rabble. It was both combined. And that's the only way you're going to get this done. It's people protesting, literal protests, but also calling your senator, calling your congressperson, calling the president, calling anybody who could be swayed about how they have a decision directly in this, but also how this decision could affect them. Are you a Republican in a swing state? Are you a Republican in a swing district in the House? House members don't get to vote on confirmations, but they might fear the backlash. Are you a senator that's right on the edge? Somebody like Lindsey Graham, who's already said he's going to vote for it, but if the polls keep getting worse, who knows? Like, keep putting that pressure on. Protest in your communities. But the Democrats also need to use every procedural tool in their belt. And Pelosi sort of said that earlier today, but it was more in the negative. She was saying, we won't rule anything out. Whereas AOC is saying, we will do everything we can, which is more positive, more affirmative when it comes to getting the job done. Look, I'm under no illusion that this is going to be tricky, that it's likely going to be the case that Donald Trump and the Republicans are able to put someone on the court. I know that there's very, very few days left until the election. There's only like 44 days left. It usually takes 40 days from the president announcing his pick to the start of hearings, let alone a confirmation vote. But I do think that regardless of the results, they're going to try to ram through a Supreme Court justice between November and January, even though that tears down all of the arguments about how the Republican Senate was elected to do this job should they be defeated after November 3rd. I know that. But AOC's message here is important. When you're talking about the fundamental human rights of people, workers' rights, women's rights, the right to health care, all of these sorts of things, you cannot do anything but fight your hardest. And the way you do that is tooth and nail try to block this Supreme Court appointment. AOC may be a rookie congresswoman, but she is a leader and she is the kind of dog you want in this fight. I'm glad to see her take this on.